Everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Dr. Cecilia Dones.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
And thank you. And the reason why I'm emphasizing, because you just within the last month or so, didn't you get your
Yes, yes.
PhD?
I successfully passed my viva. I defended my final dissertation, and so yes, it is very much official and very public. Yes, I'm a newly minted doctor. Yes,
Congratulations. I'm
thank you.
so excited for you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's in transparency. It's very difficult for me to believe sometimes how much work has gone into it, and I'm excited to share what I've learned, and I'm even more excited to continue learning in the space.
Excellent. So where can people find you?
Well, if anyone wants to have a cup of coffee, or sometimes tea, maybe, I am based in New York City. I'm always very open to having a proper chat over coffee. However, if people want to find me in digital or virtual land, you can definitely find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me on my Substack, Authentic Interactions.
So we've entitled this podcast, Can We Build Trust and Relationships in an AI World? So tell us a bit about the background, because you've actually you've done you've done a doctorate in this subject. So tell us the background and the context to this.
Yeah. So what I decided to study in graduate school. So my first graduate degree, I'm a statistician. But I got really much more interested in the people side of things because throughout my career, I studied people and told stories about people using data. I'm a quant researcher. And then I eventually expanded those skill sets and started doing enterprise data capabilities. But in grad school, I started getting very interested in this feeling, and some of my students have taught me this word, the ick. So I feel an ick sometimes when I use the internet. And so I became very obsessed with understanding the idea, well, how do we know what's real, what's authentic when we interact with each other online? And so, more formally, my area of research is trust and authenticity signals in technology mediated interpersonal communications, which is the longest, fanciest way of saying, I have trust issues with the internet. And so I'm seeking to better understand, given that we have all this technology today, internet, AI, Gen AI, agentic AI, some are arguing AGI very soon. How do we learn to trust each other? How do we know what's real? How do we learn to interact with each other with all of this technology? How do we build relationships? And so all of the work has been really trying to understand this new vocabulary based on things that we know in real life, for sure, but understanding these new signals for digital trust and digital authenticity between individuals online.
So how, if we think back to the time when we were on the Serengeti, and we were making sure that we weren't going to be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, there would have been certain signals.
Yes,
So
yes,
if somebody, we're very good at it, aren't we? Because if somebody comes over the horizon, the
yes.
fact that they may or may not be carrying a sword, but before they get to you, you know whether you like them or not.
We do practice those heuristics to make those judgments whether or not we can trust someone. And I love that example because it's a high pressure situation. Either get eaten or not get eaten. Um, what's interesting about that is it's actually our superpower that we're very good at figuring out how to work with each other. So our ability to collaborate is something that distinguishes us from other species on the planet, and our ability to collaborate at such higher levels of goals and ambitions is really what is a distinction between us and other living beings on the planet. And understanding that in the context of technology is kind of the next area where we need to figure stuff out. And so there is a framework I tend to use. There are many frameworks, and in the literature, it can be quite complex. But this is one that I actually like to use for teaching as well as in workshops for organizations trying to figure this stuff out. So I'm taking it from Blanchard and colleagues from a 2013, maybe 2012 book, Trustworks. It's the ABCD framework. I like it because it's letters of the alphabet, so I don't have to remember a new word or a new order. But I also think it's relatively straightforward. And so the A is really focused on, is this individual able? Does this person express any instance to give us a signal that they might be competent? So, if you're seeing somebody in Serengeti and they're going over they're from the distance, do they appear injured? Do they appear bigger? Do they appear strong? Those are all signals to us that, okay, maybe they are competent. Maybe they can help us survive. The second letter, B, is, are they believable? Is there a sense of integrity? And so, in that particular context and example, we might say, okay, is this individual wearing clothing? Does this individual have any kind of ornaments that indicate a status? Does this individual come with others? Something to indicate, okay, is there some integrity, or can we believe this individual? The third letter is C, so connected. Does this person express any kind of care for others, not just for themselves? And so, in the case of our example in the Serengeti, is this person immediately running at you, screaming? Mm, Okay, maybe not so much caring. Or if they pick up a stone from the ground and they throw it at you, okay, maybe not so caring. So again, do they have a connection to others, and can they exhibit some form of care? Maybe opening their palms to you. So it's a somewhat universal signal. We use this in public speaking quite often, that a way to demonstrate vulnerability and to build trust with an audience is to actually talk with our palms open to show connection to the audience. And the last one is D, dependable. And so in this case, this is over periods of time. Can they be reliable? In the case of you're just meeting someone and you're wondering, are they going to help me run away from the lion, or is there going to be another issue? It's a little bit harder, and I would depend on A, B, and C a little bit more. However, if you have repeated exposures, you hunt in the same areas and you keep running into this individual or their tribe, do they reliably show up for you? Are they pretty consistent in the way they interact with you or behave with you, or they communicate with you? And so, A, able, B, believable, C, connected, and D, dependable. These are four dimensions that I tend to teach and also speak about in workshop. Is a easy moniker and an easy way to remember, okay, can I trust this person? Let me go through this kind of framework to determine that.
Because if we then fast forward a bit in terms of the technology,
Yeah.
which is impacting in terms of the our trust and relationships, we get the telephone.
Yes. Yes.
And
So, mhm.
and go ahead.
Yeah. So at the time, there was all sorts of concerns around the telephone. Well, we're going to stop face-to-face communication with the telephone. We'll stop talking to each other. We'll stop trusting each other. That did not happen. And interestingly so, if we look at it from a cognitive processing standpoint, our brains, and this is imperceptible for most of us on a day to day basis, but our brains actually process auditory signals, sound, faster than visual signals. And so, if we go back to our Serengeti, and maybe that's the through line for this conversation, hearing the lion gives us just a slight edge over our ability to get away from the lion, versus once we see the lion, we may not have so much time to get away. And so it's some kind of intuitive sense that we process auditory signals faster than we do visual signals. So when the telephone came, it was this a device that not only helped to close distance, so it actually closed proximity. So your family who may live in another country or live across the country or many, many kilometers away, you could start to speak to them in real time. So it closed the proximity or the distance between individuals. And on top of that, the way that we used to hold we still do in some ways, though the way we manage mobile calls. We tend to have some device in our ear. And so that sound is very, very close to us. And in many ways, it's very intimate. And so, auditory signals, and particularly what the telephone has brought us in terms of technology, not only close distance, but increase the intimacy between individuals when we communicate. And so, it actually is a technology that for the benefits of being able to interact with more individuals from further distances, also created other challenges, meaning at the time there were concerns: would people stop writing letters? Would telegraphs go away? All of those things.
But
But it's an example.
there's
Mhm.
also a culture, isn't there, with a telephone, which I was told as a child, when you answer the telephone, you need to say what the number is.
Oh, interesting.
And so there was this sort of like framework that was,
Yeah.
and because I was told, you hit the framework, and then they'll say, "Is mummy or daddy there?" And then you need to go and get mummy or daddy or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that. But there was a kind of a cultural
Yeah.
way that you answered the telephone, or you you dealt with the telephone. Because
Yeah.
I think with on the telephone you tend to, unless you're having a big argument, you tend to wait for the other person to finish,
Yes. Yes.
um,
That's true.
and then speak, rather than, whereas on a Zoom call you probably go to talk over people.
Yes, the talking over individuals, that is definitely one of the challenges of, I guess, more modern communication systems, in the sense that um, I really liked how you described the telephone. I was going to use ritual, but you utilize the word culture. And so there's a procedure that we've all learned either from our families or our communities. This is how you interact with this technology, and that's kind of ingrained over practice and over time. I think one of the challenges we have with more modern technology systems that allow us to communicate is, okay, what is the social norm on TikTok? What is the social norm on Slack? What is the social norm on Signal? These are all different platforms with different subcultures and expectations. And so learning all of these maybe micro dialects and cultural norms around that is frankly quite difficult. I'm not on all platforms. I can't keep up with all platforms my personally myself, and there's always a new platform to join, and figuring what are the rules of the road, what are the ways that we communicate in digital signals that indicate that kind of benevolence, that care, that integrity, the reliability. It's all new vocabulary to us, and it's also driven regionally as well. So what would be normal and acceptable, maybe if you're working in finance, may not be so if you were working in the arts, for example, or maybe in the UK it looks a little bit different than it does here in the US. And so all of these micro dialects and virtual signals is something we're all learning in real time.
Because one of the things that you said on the prep call we had was that with AI,
Yeah.
um, AI actually can change some of the words. So when we're on the telephone, we have a conversation,
Yes.
but AI, for example, simplistically could change when you say the word soccer, I hear the
Hmm.
word football.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so AI could actually change the words, but there could be cultural differences. Whereas I would expect you to say the word soccer because you don't understand football,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and for you to flip, I'm joking, and flipping the word football, I'd actually find it quite strange, because if you said the word football, I think of it as where you wear the pads and
American football. Yeah.
you throw the rugby ball and stuff like that. So you're in this situation. My point being is, you're in this situation where AI can change the words, and
Yeah.
culturally it may change it to the wrong word.
Yes. And this is exactly the challenge we're having with utilizing AI in translation systems, because our languages are a reflection of our cultural values, beliefs, attitudes, norms at a particular point in time. And the machines don't understand that very well yet. And I'll be quite blunt and critical about that. So, for example, and apologies, my bias is a little bit about the US as I'm more familiar with the market. So, for example, many individuals in the US speak Spanish as as the second language or the home language. However, the way it sounds when you're in California sounds a little bit different than if you're in New York. Sounds a little bit different if you're in Florida and Miami. Why? If we look at the immigration patterns, the actual countries that had individuals that came into the US and actually settled in the US are different countries, so different cultural norms. And then, depending on if you're first generation, second generation, the level of acculturation your family has experienced, the topics you choose to speak in your home language as opposed to the more universal language in the US. At the moment it's English. Um, it's an individual choice. So when you have the machines start to translate things for you, so for example, football, soccer, that's a relatively benign one, but it does cause some cognitive dissonance. A common one I see is when we're talking about temperature.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
do Americans have an intuition around what 40 degrees means?
Mm.
40 degrees is quite hot, right?
Double it in that.
However, in the US, we would consider putting on coats because it means it's cold.
Okay.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, so it's typically one of those like, "Ooh, do we really wanna translate that?" Because there's a cognitive association with those anchor points. And so sometimes when we're utilizing the machines to translate for us, yes, it does help us to write the email faster. And yes, it does help us to express ourselves, maybe in a more formal way than we're accustomed to speaking, and that could be helpful in academic or professional or business type environments. Yes, yes, all very true. However, is it the meaning of what you wanted to say? And how does that start to change how your professional persona expresses itself? And so the concern is that these AIs, they're trained on all sorts of data and mainly the internet. And so, do we start to have a flattening in how we express ourselves? Because it starts to all sound a little bit the same. So, fun fact about me. Um, I have a North American accent, but culturally, I didn't really grow up with all the normal American culture, so I am missing all sorts of references all the time, cultural references, and I continuously make mistakes when I try to use idioms. So it is quite often in normal speech. I will not do it now because I'm now self-conscious about it. I will mix up idioms, and so if the machine fixes that for me, one could assume, "Oh, she must be very, very fluent in American English." Maybe I'm not. And is that something I want to express, or is that something I wanna hide? And so in terms of building trust between individuals, one of the components I think about quite often, and I also, share as a framework, um, authenticity matters. So the ability to express yourself and what true means for you is also part of the equation to building that trust with each other, especially online. And so very quickly, the other framework I tend to use is face. So we put on our faces. For those of us who wear makeup, we definitely put on our faces every day. For those of us who don't, we present ourselves and with a persona when we speak to each other. And so, face familiarity. Okay, if you see me quite often, you see me on the telly, you hear my voice on Spotify, I might become familiar. So you may be able to trust me. Authenticity. So again, my verbal tics, my my inability to know all the idioms and express them accurately. That's part of my authenticity. Is this person real? Consistency. So when you see me on different platforms, even written form, visual, am I consistent? Am I behaving consistently? And then engagement when I'm interacting with you. one-on-one or one-to-many over an audience is the engagement. Am I leaning in? Am I listening, active listening? Am I trying to actually interact with you? So that face is very important. And depending on if you're talking about a transactional type of interaction, so okay, we have a business deal and we just need to get the paperwork passed over. Okay, maybe that's good to just have all virtually because it's just paperwork that we're passing along, and it's quite transactional in nature. But if I just met you and I'm excited and I want to build a relationship with you professionally, let's write a book together. Let's do I don't know, a different podcast, or let's build a new show together, a workshop together. Maybe I want to do this, yes, virtually because we might be in different locations, but at some point you will want to put that in real life. So when I visit your town or you visit my town, can we also build upon that relationship with it in real life? So knowing when to be virtual versus hybrid is a key component of understanding how to build trust in these virtual and in real life environments. And also practicing practicing face, familiarity, authenticity, consistency, engagement is also important for building that trust in nowadays.
So we are over time, but I want to ask you a question, which is
Yes.
one of around trust
Yes.
using AI. So, for example, this came up on a podcast that Sam Altman was on the other day, which is that when we go to a therapist or a doctor or whatever, we have there's a confidentiality
Yes.
agreement. So what we say to the doctor is never passed on.
Yes.
Whereas we currently have a situation at the moment where people probably younger than me are actually using ChatGPT to say, why do I have a spot on my forehead? Why do I, why is my big toe bigger than the other people's at the school, or whatever it is? And they're
Mhm.
asking these personal questions. And legally at this point, that could all be subpoenaed and basically showed in court.
I am not a lawyer in the space, so I can't speak to the specifics. And our markets are quite
Well,
different.
Sam was saying there needs to be some sort of confidentiality law, and very, very quickly. And he said that he's talking to people clearly on his pay grade, which is way above mine, about this and trying to get this really, really quickly. But I'm just interested in your opinion as a doctorate in this area about trust
Mhm.
and people using AI in this way.
So I can't fault anyone who's trying to utilize these technologies in that way. They have a need and they're trying to address it, and so I can only empathize with the situation. In terms of kind of governance, I think governance and literacy. So I can applaud anyone who's trying to, especially build in a little bit more governance and regulatory guardrails around these technologies to ensure unintended harms. So that's a good thing. I think what you can do as an individual, and if you're a parent or you work with young individuals, I think it's extremely important. We've been saying this in the space for a very long time. Data literacy, media literacy. Um, AI literacy is something that is critically important because, exactly to your point, very personal information is being shared. And yeah, sharing your personal information, oof, not so good. And that has consequences. My bigger concern, and where I would love for there to be additional guardrails and governance, would be for individuals who are crying out for help. So let's say it's the individual that has one toe bigger than the other. Um, and they actually express maybe a mental health care need. Um, right now, we do not have protocols to say, oh, goodness, here are the phone numbers you should call, or here's the additional support systems in your local neighborhood, or maybe nationally, wherever you are. We don't have any of those protocols. And so that individual is now on their own, potentially speaking to an LLM, and that may be their only support.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want that for anyone who's seeking help.
Mm.
And so, yes, data privacy, making sure there's consents and all those things, good, good, good. However, from a healthcare and mental health care standpoint, I think there's definite opportunity for those of those in higher pay grades than me, for sure, to help figure out what those guardrails and protocols should be, especially for safety for marginalized and potentially um, individuals who may need additional support.
Dr. Cecilia Dones, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. I wanted to let that run a little bit longer than I normally do. Where can people find you?
Please find me on Authentic Interactions. It is my Substack. You can also find me on LinkedIn if you look up my name, Dr. Cecilia Dones. I also keep a newsletter on there as well for those of us in the marketing space. What is a CMO to do with AI?
There you go. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. It's been excellent. Thank you. And one of the, I recommend you run a podcast because you meet all kinds of interesting people. And if you, I know that you are a lifelong learner, and you meet people, and it feeds that.
Okay,
Thank you so
brilliant.
much.